Hey everyone, I'm Daniel, a game developer currently working on a shoot 'em up roguelite, and this is what happened on my game in 3 weeks. In the last devlog I told you the idea of the game, future plans, as well as things I already added to the game. As you can see here, the game was very unpolished and it didn't give the player any visual feedback. Also, there were many placeholder graphics as well as some that didn't fit the game very well, for example the player character. You really liked the art style, especially how it was textured. And that's something the player character is missing. So I remade the player character and this is how it turned out. I really like it. To differentiate it from the dangerous enemies, I gave the player character blue and shiny eyes. This gives the game a lot more clariness. Talking about clariness, I gave this very first version of the game to very few playtesters, only friends and family. And they said that it's very hard to know which projectile are shot by the player and which by the enemy. To fix this, I made the projectiles by the player the same glowing blue as the eyes. Now you can easily see which projectiles can damage the player. Back to the player himself, I redid the player animations, because I didn't like the old ones. Now that I finished improving the player character, I started adding little effects to polish. The effects aren't always only built out of one component. Take the enemy die effect, it's made out of a particle explosion with a blood splatter on top and then an enemy corpse. After I added a good ton of game juice, I replaced all remaining placeholder sprites. Mainly they were UI, so I changed the health bar to this text inspired by the HP design used in Spelunky. Then I changed the spell slots and the score, which is now used as currency to buy upgrades after defeating a boss. But there are no bosses and the shop doesn't exist yet. So this is something for the future. Lastly, I replaced the walls surrounding the game, and it looks much better now. But this isn't enough. I added these few shapes to the background. I drew them in just white, so I'm able to change color easily inside of Unity. And I don't get bad results. To give everything a quite realistic feel, I added parallax. Parallaxing is the effect when something closer to the camera is moving faster than something far away to the camera. For this you can use a perspective camera, which is used in 3D games. But I wrote a custom parallaxing script because when using a perspective camera, you have to scale things in a weird way. Now only a few clouds and here we are with another step to get the graphics to the next level. Now I added post-processing, lighting effects using simple soft shapes, fog and finally screen shake. To finish this up, I implemented the all-in-one shader asset into my game, which you can use for all kinds of different shader things. Now I finished polishing my first area, so I did a bit of balancing my enemies so far and the player character. One thing I said in the last devlog is, also I want to make the controller input more comfortable, because it's sometimes tricky to control with a controller. And I just did that. Next I added the first prototype of the pause menu, and after finishing this, I went ahead to make the level system. That was a bit more complex than normally, but it works perfectly. When reaching the end of a level, the camera movement stops and a red arrow appears that tells you to go up, to get to the next level. Also I added a little intro screen to every level, which tells the player which area and level he or she is in. I also created a little icon and text that has the same point as the intro screen in the left bottom corner. Then I took a break for a weekend because I created the reel for the 48th Ludum Dare game jam. So let's jump to Tuesday. There I added dark levels. It's a 25% chance that the level is a dark level. But maybe I'll change this to 10%. What do you think? Let me know in the comments. And after this I added many different new enemies. I don't want to spoil every enemy, but here's a favorite of mine. It's called Boomba. And it patrols simply a set way. But here comes the special thing. When it dies, it explodes, and the explosion damages the player. So here it is smart to kill it when far away. And another thing I changed is the background. I found a very awesome watercolor brush pack in the internet. Here are a few favorite brushes of mine, and I will use it now for things like the background and a bit of UI instead of the fresco brush. Then I finally sat down for a few hours and came up with a title. I first wanted to go with something simple, like inner or inside. But then I went through a lot of different languages and I stopped at the word for fear in Japanese. So the title of the game is now Osore. It really fits the magical, mystical and dark atmosphere of the game. In the next weeks I will create more spells, enemies, and I will upgrade the pause menu. If everything will go well, I will add the first soundtrack into the game and a few sounds. In terms of audio, my own work is terrible. So for the soundtrack I once again teamed up with Chris Kohler, who made the music for my cancelled game Once Upon a Nightmare. And he's already working on the track, so wish him luck. And for sound effects, I have a big sound effects folder where I can find a lot of different kinds of sounds. How do you like the changes on Osore? All kinds of feedback is so appreciated. If you want to follow along this journey creating this game, then I recommend subscribing to the channel. With all that said, cheers!